want to follow along, we're going to start on page 129 with Dodi Lee. Welcoming in Shabbat, page 142 is Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Bochem, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Everybody. It's so wonderful to have you all here this Shabbos as we celebrate our sisterhood and our musical Shabbat. Our ensemble is here. Lewis is giving the drash tonight. As you know, Lewis is very sad for us, but good for Lewis that he's going on to graduate school at Penn. And so it's been such a pleasure to have Lewis in our congregation that we're looking forward to him sharing some Torah with us, as he has done many times already, but this time in the form of a drash. And you may be wondering, did we hire another cantor? If we could, we would. But in fact, a rabbi as well. And so I want to introduce, hopefully you know, Alyssa Platkow. She is our rabbinic intern for the summer, or for 6 weeks. Alyssa's following our Klei Kodesh around, and we're trying not to scare her off from the rabbinate in doing that. But she also, as you have heard, has a wonderful voice, and so she's lending her voice to our congregation, to our ensemble this evening. In a moment, we're going to light the Shabbos candles, and I just want to make a quick comment that I was, we think about fire a lot in Judaism. We light candles for memory, we light candles to sanctify moments. And certainly over this last week, we have been thinking a lot about fire and its destructive nature as well. Our tradition teaches us that Torah can be like fire also. That if we get close to it, it can warm us, but if we get too close, if we go too intensely into it, it can actually singe and burn. But if we come too far away from it, then we don't experience the warmth. Fire and Torah can be very delicate in that way. And we can also think about that in terms of our environment and how too much or too little of one thing or another, be it rain or heat or conservation or not enough conservation, can also burn and destroy as we are seeing. And so we think about that tonight as we light the Shabbos candles with the power of flame and fire to sanctify, to unite us and to help us focus, to light a path, hopefully towards holiness, and in our world today, hopefully towards a responsibility for being Shomrei Ha'adamah, guardians of our earth. With that, I want to invite our soon-to-be installed Sisterhood president, Ashley Speed, who spent all week grading papers and writing report cards. And this is like the last thing she wants to do right now. But we're glad that you're here, Ashley, to lead us in a reading and then the lighting of the Shabbos candles.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. So we began our services tonight with a quote, you may have noticed, from Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs. Ani ledodi v'dodi li. My beloved is mine and I am my beloved's. Because there's a Jewish custom of reading Shir HaShirim on Friday night to usher in Shabbat with its beautiful poetry of love and images of nature. And as we know, every Shabbat is an opportunity to celebrate love, to celebrate the special occasions that bring us together, even beyond Shabbat, which we're going to have tonight. We're excited to have our vocal ensemble here, Alyssa with us, and just as Shir HaShirim lifts our spirits and helps us to tap into our emotions through beautiful poetry, we have this music to enhance our prayers and help us feel a connection to something greater. So we invite you to join us singing the words in Hebrew, Yalalai, it's all good. Beginning with Psalm 96 on page 131. Shiru Ladonai, sing to God a new song. Shiru Ladonai, shir chadash, shiru Ladonai, kol haaretz, shiru Ladonai, baruchu shemo, basru miyom leyom yeshuato, sapru bagoyim kevodo, bechol ha'amim nikleotam, ki gadol Adonai, u'mulav me'od, lo ra'u al kol Elohim, ayin 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 layla layla, yalayla 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 Page 133, Mizmor Shiru. Mizmor Shiru Ladonai, Shir Chadash, Ki niflot asa, Hoshia lo yamino zroa, page 134, those first two lines, Zamru Ladonai. Zameru Ladonai Bechinor, Bechinor Vekol Zimra. Zameru Ladonai Bechinor, Bechinor Vekol Zimra. Zameru, Zamru Ladonai. Zameru, Zamru Ladonai. Back to the top. Zameru Ladonai Bechinor, Bechinor Vekol Zimra. Zameru Ladonai Bechinor, Bechinor Vekol Zimra. So we're going to turn now to the peak of our Kabbalat Shabbat service, Lecha Dodi on page 138. And when we get there, that last verse, we're going to stand and face the entrance to welcome in the Sabbath bride. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekavela. Shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. Hולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. Verse 2. לקראת שבת לכו דרך, כי מקור הברכה. מראש מכלב נזוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. Verse 3. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי צאי מתוך מהפכה. בעלת שבט במקפחה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. Verse 5. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת nekavela. We'll rise and face the entrance to welcome the Sabbath bride. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצולה. תוך אמונך as we turn to the middle of page 140 for Tzaddik Katamar. Yep.
Yasher Koach. It's my pleasure now to invite Ashley Speed back up to our bima for our Sisterhood installation service, and I believe the presentation of the Jan Pollock Award as well. And so, is that right? I have that right? I think so. I don't know. My note was introduce Ashley, so. But I know there's a script.
I think Annette's doing that.
Okay. I was just told to introduce Ashley. What would you like? What would you like to do first, Annette? What do the jam? So it's my pleasure now to invite Annette Kozicki, the outgoing president of our sisterhood, co-president. To the awards there on your left. Annette's right here. Annette's right here. Annette. Coming back. Okay. No rehearsals. No rehearsals. For the presentation of the Jan Pollock Award.
All right. Shabbat Shalom. Oops, nope, we keep those pointed down. I forgot. So, about 10 years ago, I was singing in choir, and Mary Kleiner came along with her little baby Sarah, and we became friends. And she was the other young member of Sisterhood. That's what it was at the time. Everyone was my mother's age. And Mary and I were, she's 10 years younger than me, but we were the young ones. So some of the first things that I noticed about Mary Kleiner were her drive, her passion, and the amount that she cares about things. She's very good at building and nurturing her community. And so it wasn't surprising that one of the first initiatives that she had with Sisterhood was to start this child minding, which turned into this whole community, this young families community, which now actually makes up the majority of our Sisterhood board, all these young people. And it's kind of a magical thing, and has really built something really special here for Saturday mornings. So we've always enjoyed working together, cooking and baking and working in that way together. And then a few years ago, we were kind of thrown into the position of being co-sisterhood presidents. And it was amazing. It was amazing to work side by side with her and get to learn how to not procrastinate and how to make a spreadsheet for everything. It's really how you get things done. Do them right away and make a spreadsheet. And then send a million emails to everyone. and so I'm really proud what we created. It created something in the sisterhood that was young and vibrant and relevant, and in the end really actually recreated maybe not her mother's sisterhood, but my mother's sisterhood, and the sisterhood of the women who were standing on the shoulders of, that's when they did their big things. And so we're coming to this time when we get to recreate that, which is really special. She really cares for our community. Mary is a giver. She's always made sure that if someone's in need of food or in need of anything, but especially food, she likes to deliver food and challah and make sure that people are fed. And she just is always there if you need someone. Just like Ashley yesterday in the emergency. Ashley, and she called Mary up. She said, "Are you close by? Because we're starving and we're sitting in emergency." And Mary was there in how many minutes?
Like 20 minutes.
Exactly,
with
with
a smoothie
food.
for my daughter and coffee for me.
So that's the kind of person she is. Make sure she's on your speed dial. That's all I wrote. So without further ado, I am so proud to present this year's Jan Pollock Award. It's the Sisterhood Award for Excellence in Volunteerism. And there's no one that embodies this in my mind more than Mary Kleiner. So without further ado, please, Mary Kleiner. This is for you. The other ramp.
The other round. I should have did the sisterhood round. Thank you.
Do you want to say anything?
I didn't write a speech or anything. I want to keep it short. But I just want to say, less than 5 years ago, we didn't know what would happen to sisterhood. And here we are, and are so happy to see, and, for you guys to see this onboarding sisterhood board. It's amazing. And we are setting this new generation. Thank you, Donna, Risa, Tony, yes. Alexis, if you're watching. You guys are really the ones that said, we got to keep this sisterhood going, and we did it. So there you go. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Jan Pollock Award. Woo! All right. Over to Ms. Ashley Speed for our installation.
Okay. I have a poem to read, and no one told me who wrote it. So it's called Sisters by Choice, but I don't know the author. I'm sorry. We are sisters by choice. We have chosen to be there for each other, and we recognize that the friendships we make can be as important as the relationships that we are born into. Sisterhood gives us an amazing amount of strength to face things that seem impossible to endure. My ancestors link me to the past, but it is my sisters who are linking me to the future. We get to our future together by joining our hands in sisterhood. We are each unique, but we do not stand alone. When joy abounds for one of us, we all celebrate. When sorrow envelops one of us, we all shed tears. When success comes to one of us, we all rejoice. When failure reaches one of us, we all strive to recover. When one of us gives birth, we all share the simcha. When death descends in our midst, we are all diminished. When one of us chooses to pursue a goal, we band together in common purpose. When one of us finds the path too steep, we push and pull together in common strength. We bring to each other the warmth of family. We share in the presence and the promise of each other. We gather strength from the past to develop faith in the future. We now ask Sunny Rothschild to be our installation officer for this evening.
Okay. I feel like I'm the old guard here tonight. All these wonderful young people. Okay. Today we install our newly elected officers and the elected and appointed trustees of our sisterhood for 2023 to 2024. Women whose paths, like those of Ruth and Naomi, are still unknown, but whose steps will be sure and steady. Let the light of Torah guide them as we work together. I'm going to read the names of all of those elected, and when I do, would you please stand up? The officers: President Ashley Speed, Co-Vice President Membership Jean Angus. Co-Vice President Membership, Amy Gilbert. Co-Vice President Communication, Mary L. Solon. Co-Vice President Communication, Martha Ophir. Vice President, Social and Community Action, Rachel Rubini. Vice President, Social and Community Action, Alicia Eckersley. Vice President, Fundraising, Mary Kleiner. Vice President, Programming, Peggy Wang. Co-Treasurer, Naomi Morgan. Co-Treasurer, Annette Kozicki. Immediate past president is Jenny Glickman-Rind. The trustees are Desiree Gayton, Julia Ratke, Shay Matters, Laura Twan, Donna Ornstein, Ricky Mintz, and Elisa Delisle. And I'm going to ask you all, I think you all should have a copy of the oath of office. If not, it doesn't look like you all do. Okay, so I'm going to read it slowly, and if you can repeat it every few words after me, that would be great. Thank you. I choose to accept the office of the Sisterhood of Temple Shalom. Women of Reformed Judaism, to which I have been elected. I pledge my energies and abilities toward fulfilling the duties of that office. I recognize the leadership of the Temple Shalom Sisterhood. Places very special obligations upon me. That it demands not only the work of my hands, but also the commitment of my heart. I do solemnly pledge to perform in accordance with Sisterhood's Constitution the responsibilities of the position I hold on the Sisterhood Board. I dedicate myself to those duties. This is my pledge freely given, upon which I ask God's blessing. Please keep standing. This is the day of installing leadership. This is the day of accepting duty. This is the day of sharing responsibility, and this is the day of rededicating ourselves as women of faith. The leaders of our people have always carried the Torah, held it aloft for all to follow. This sacred book is at the heart of Judaism and in the hearts of all synagogue women. This is the source from which we receive the understanding of all our aims and purposes. Rabbi?
I want to invite Rabbi Brown and Cantor Cohen to join us on the Bima. If you can remain standing for a moment, we are so blessed by your leadership and by your energy, your vision, and the years of commitment from our sisterhood. You do indeed stand upon the shoulders of the giants that have come before you, and we know that with your perspective and your insight, there is only great things to come for our congregation, and we could not do any but without you. And so we give you this blessing.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
Ken Yehi Ratzon. May God bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka.
Ken Yehi Ratzon.
May God's light shine upon you and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Shalom.
May God always be with you through all of life's journeys and grant you the greatest blessing of all, that of wholeness and completion, the blessing of shalom, of peace, in a world, in a home, in a congregation, in a family, in a life filled with peace. And we say together, Amen.
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 And Mazel Tov.
Mazel tov.
Please be seated. Actually, now that I've sat you, it's time to stand again. Page 263, we continue with Chatzi Kaddish. Please rise.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ואלמד יברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי, וחייכנו יומכנו וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה בגלה ובזמן קרי לאמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומה ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתעלה שמי דקודשה לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה דוש בחרתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
Baruch Adonai המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Please be seated.
Without for our Mariv Aravim prayer tonight, taking advantage of our ensemble here, we would share this classic camp tune. It's called Roll Into Dark, if you haven't heard it.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Boreyom v'layla, bolel or mipnei choshech, bolel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or.
Now you can pick either part.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into night. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamariv Aravim.
266.
Avat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Al ken Adonai Eloheinu V'shofeinu Umkomeinu נשיח בחוקך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו
יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו לעולם ועד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בעיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We'll turn to page 270 now for Mi Chamocha.
וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Top of 271, Hashkivein.
Hashkiveinu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, leshalom, v'hamidenu shomeinu lechaim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha.
continue with Yismechu, giving joy to the next part of our service, page 272.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. מקדש שבי שבת, יצאו ויתענגו מטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. והשבי רצית פה וקידשת שבת, חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. זכר למעשה וראשית שבת, זכר למעשה וראשית שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת.
Friends, we've made it to the meat and potatoes of our service, or for the vegetarians among us, that really good tofu stir fry with the thick udon noodles. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We've made it to our Amidah. Our Amidah is the peak of our service. It's the moment in which we are closest to God, in which we are able to actually speak, our Midrash tells us, face to face, almost like Moshe. This is the original FaceTime with God. It's our ability to tell God our wants, our hopes for the future, the things that are deep inside and bothering us. It's our time to give incredible thanks and say, wow, for the world around us. So we rise and begin that Amidah on page 273 with Adonai Sfatai.
Eloheinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekoneh Hakol, Vezocher Chasdei Avot ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo be'ava, Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayem Etim Atarav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechakel Chaim Bechesed, Mechayem Etim Berachamim Rabim, Shomech Noflim Verofech Olim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Vishenei Avar, Michamocha Bal Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Meini, Umechayeh, Miliot Miach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'chayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hametim. Page 276. Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yalalu chasela, Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
You are holy, your name is holy, and those who are holy praise you every day. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, our holy God. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Amen. You may be seated.
We continue on page 279.
Retzeh Adonai Eloheinu ve'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ava tekabel u'tehilet ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael Yisrael Amecha El Karov Lechol Korav Penei El Avadecha Vechoneinu Shefach Rochacha Aleinu V'techezena Eineinu B'shuvcha leTzion v'rachamim Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato leTzion.
We continue with the Al Kulam on page 280.
Sorry, actually, it's on 281.
Page 281.
I wrote it down wrong.
Ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, Yitbarach ve'yitromam, Yitbarach ve'yitromam, Shimcha Malkeinu tamid le'olam va'ed, ve'al Yitbarach ve'yitromam,
שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל העמים יודו חסרה ויעללו את שמך באמת. האל ישועתנו בעזרתנו, עזרתנו סלע. ועל כולם, ועל כולם, יתברך ויתרומם, יתברך ויתרומם. שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך, הטוב שמך, ולך נאה להודות.
We continue with Shalom Rav, page 282.
Shalom Rav al Israel amcha, nasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel amcha, nasim leolam. Ki ata melech hador, lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech hador, lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Israel amcha, nasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel amcha, nasim leolam. Betov einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Israel amcha, nasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Israel amcha, nasim leolam. Nasim leolam. Nasim leolam.
Now is that moment of silent prayer. Now it's time to delve within ourselves, panim al panim, face to face with God. Take a moment to reflect either with the words of our siddur in Hebrew, in English, or in the words of our hearts.
We turn our thoughts to loved ones who are sick and in need of healing, aware of the power of this community to bring the kind of healing of body and also the healing of soul, the power that we have all felt when we know that our friends and our loved ones are thinking of us when we ourselves lie on a bed of pain in moments of need of healing and recovery. We ask God's blessing of healing upon Yeshayahu, Olin Hunter-Good, Glenda Gutman, Dana Becker. Glenda's doing well, by the way. Dana Becker, Stephanie Stanberg, Sarah Chiachi. Sarah's doing pretty well also. Yaakov ben Yosef Abatia, Michael Cohen, Reuven ben Zlota Vanachman, Lynn Kersen, Wendy and Roger Seelig, Yaakov Eliezer ben Caleb Apala, Natalie Wormelli, Yumkin Godan, Semach ben Menashe Halevi Varikla, Meyer Tzvi, Meir Salman ben Rachel, Daniel Gottesman, Bill Shaw, Claire Golumbia, Carla Zavot, Janet Gelb, David Shlomo Gorney, Andrea Jarzbiak. If there are others in need of this prayer for healing, we invite you to stand and call their names out now in the midst of our congregation. We join with our cantor and Amisha Berach, a prayer for healing.
May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi shebera imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the
Renewal of spirits, and let us say, Just want to draw your attention quickly to our announcements this evening. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read them all to you. I just do want to thank our vocal ensemble. You have been just wonderful, and we wish we could have you here every Shabbos. It's just great. We're going to hear from Lewis in a moment, but we are just, Kat and Shira and Alyssa, we're just so blessed to have you. So thank you for lending your voices this evening, and Annette as well. There you are. The only thing I do want to mention is that our annual general meeting is coming up for the congregation. That'll be on Tuesday, June 20th at 7 o'clock. We'd love it if you would come in person, because part of the general meeting part is the actual meeting of each other, but it'll also be available on Zoom, and you'll be able to participate in a hybrid role. Remember that? Remember Zoom? Yes, remembering it all too well. So you'll be able to participate if you would like from home, but we'd love it if you'd come here.
And then one more announcement.
One more announcement from
Which is, I just wanted to thank Joyce Cherry, who's also here, who will be accompanying the vocal ensemble in a little bit. You will hear her. So thank you.
Rabbi Brown.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. So about 2 years ago, I was invited by Greg, my husband, to come down into the basement to Zoom a new graduate student who was coming to UBC named Lewis Polson. And because he said Lewis wants to learn a little bit about the Jewish community in Vancouver and know how he might get involved. So I said, of course. And so I told Lewis about everything going on in the Jewish community. And then Lewis came to Vancouver and did everything happening in the Jewish community. really, Lewis. Lewis has been an incredible presence in Temple Sholom. Those of you who are regulars know Lewis as part of our vocal ensemble, a Torah reader, a Haftarah reader, a participant in Next Generation, an amazing musician, Haman in the Purim Spiel, Terminator Haman. Lewis came to Israel on Greg's dig this summer. I drove a bus with Lewis in the in the front seat. Lewis, you are such an incredible mensch and human being, and part of course, of this Vancouver Jewish community. But I know every community that you go to, you put yourself into it and make such a difference. And so, though we are so sad to lose you here at Temple Sholom, we know that you will be doing incredible things for the University of Pennsylvania, for Jewish studies, and for whatever Jewish community you get to be a part of and who's lucky to have you. So we'll invite you to share some words of Torah this evening.
Which is not just the Shabbat in which I have the last Shabbat in which I have the wonderful honor of participating in this Temple Sholom choir, but also the Shabbat, which one of the things Rabbi Brown did not mention is it is also her birthday. Yom Haledet Sameach, Rabbi, happy birthday. As this is the Shabbat in which we read about light. As some of you may know, as Rabbi Brown said, for the last 2 years I have been a student at UBC. I've been a master's student of ancient Jewish history. And my advisor is Professor Greg Gardner, Rabbi Brown's husband, who has a long-standing interest in ancient oil lamps and in Talmudic laws about light. But this is also a little bit beshert in another way, because the light that we read about this week is strikingly relevant to my own experience as I reflect on my time at UBC, at Temple Sholom, and in Vancouver, and also on our more universal need to find a sense of belonging and community. In this week's Parsha, Beha'alotcha, we read about a very specific type of light. The Parsha begins, Adonai spoke to Moshe saying, speak to Aharon and say to him, typical formulaic Torah language, this is the important part, when you mount your lamps, let the 7 lamps give light at the front of the menorah. The Zohar, a medieval Kabbalistic or mystical commentary on the Torah, notes that the language that the Torah uses to describe Aharon's completion of this action is vaya'as kain, which means and he did so, or more literally, he made it so. The Zohar points out that this is a very similar phrase to that which describes the creation of the world in Sefer Bereshit. Each day, God creates something, and then vayehi kain, it was so. But this language is used to describe every day except for one, which is the first day, in chapter 1, verse 3, when God creates light. From this, the Zohar teaches us that the light Aharon created when he lit the menorah for the very first time fulfilled God's dictate to bring light into the world, making it so, vaya'as kain. The light emanating from the menorah, should have double-spaced that. The light emanating from the menorah was therefore especially divine because it came directly from the primordial light that God had made at the very beginning of creation and served as a beacon of connectivity, and I would imagine a beacon of hope to the Israelites in the desert. But there was also something a little bit more concerning and less rosy about this light. First, the Torah makes clear that the menorah was inside the inner sanctuary, the Heichal, in the tabernacle, right next to the Kodesh Kodeshim, the Holy of Holies. Although it makes sense that this particularly holy and sanctified light would be found in a holy and sanctified space, this placement also meant that most of the Israelites would actually never see this light. Not even most of the priests would see it. In the Talmud, we learn that the Kohanim, the priests of the temple, were only allowed to enter the Heichal, the sanctuary in which the menorah stood, to undertake a specific action related to their work in the temple. They couldn't just go in to bask in this unique light and enjoy its glow. This is completely different, for instance, from the light that we kindle each year during Hanukkah, in which traditionally we don't work while the candles are burning. The mitzvah is simply to sit and enjoy the light emanating from the Chanukiah. The light of the menorah definitely had good intentions, but it might have suffered from exclusionism and inaccessibility. There was a lot of red tape before anyone would be able to access the divine light that this menorah, according to the Zohar, could provide the Jews in the desert. The Torah then strengthens the exclusivity of the menorah even further. A little later on, we learn that God instructs Moshe, quote, to separate the Levites apart from the Israelites, and they will be mine. Vayehu li. Should have turned that the other way. There are two especially important forms of separation in Judaism. The first, of course, is kedusha, or sanctification, the idea that we separate holy things from the mundane world. One of the best examples of kedusha are the Torah scrolls behind me. Kedusha explains in part why the Torah scrolls never touch the ground, why they are dressed in fine cloth and adorned with metal crowns and breastplates, why they are paraded around the synagogue before, and in some congregations also after, they are read from. This is how Ibn Ezra, a medieval commentator from Spain, understands this verse. He says that by separating the Levites from the wider Israelite community, God gave them, quote, a great status. But there is also another form of separation in our tradition, which is almost its opposite, and this is called karet. It comes from the Hebrew root karat, which means to cut or to cut off. Here, the thing, or actually sometimes the person, is separated from the community either because of impurity or, more commonly, as a punishment. They are denied access to the community and held back from gaining that sense of belonging we all need. I wonder if what the Levites experienced here was actually not just a form of sanctification, but simultaneously a form of karet. After all, the Torah is clear that through this unique opportunity for service in the temple, the Levites lost ownership of themselves. In a way, they could only gain access to the divine light in the tabernacle by sacrificing themselves, by sacrificing who they were. Yet because of their closeness to God, they were also sanctified. They were separated into a holy space. To me, this dual role of Levite separation as both sanctification and self-sacrifice, and the inner placement of the menorah, is emblematic of a much larger problem. Coming from the world of academia, it's hard for me to separate the metaphor of light from the metaphor of knowledge. I wonder if the light that the menorah was that was in the menorah was not just something that the Israelites could see, but something that they could learn. That this light had an inherent wisdom, coming as it did, according to the Zohar, from the very first light of creation, that it could impart to those who learned from it. This, to me, is what makes the separation of the Levi'im and the inner location of the menorah not just strange, but actually dangerous. In order to benefit from this light, Israelites had to pass a litmus test. They had to be from the right tribe. They had to go in for a specific purpose. And in the case of the Levites, they even had to give up who they were. They had to give up their freedom. In our world today, we see these barriers all around us, not least of which in traditional academic spaces. This form of kedusha karet embodied exactly what I was afraid of as an undergraduate. I was fascinated by ancient Jewish history, by ancient history in general, and by the world of the university and scholarship and academia. But I had also heard stories about abusive or negligent or possessive advisors. Again, vayehu li, they will be mine. About graduate students who couldn't find friendships outside narrow circles of academic writers, perhaps unable to leave the menorah's inner sanctuary once they walked in. And about the startling socioeconomic gaps that act as gatekeepers between the menorot of brilliant scholars and students with new and important perspectives, but without the same unearned privileges as their peers. Needless to say, this has not been at all my experience at UBC or at Temple Sholom, I should say. Instead, I would point to the words of Leonard Cohen, Zichrono Livracha, who reminds us, quote, "There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." For me, Temple Sholom, UBC, and the wider Vancouver community have been like a fissure in the wall of the tabernacle, letting the light from the menorah reach outside that inner, narrow, separated sanctuary, the heichal, and into a more caring, welcoming, and compassionate environment, without litmus tests, without self-sacrifice, but instead a place to bask in the light of this community and fully be myself. In other words, this synagogue and this city has given me that space that the menorah, under different circumstances, could have provided all of the Israelites. Through the opportunity to bask in the light of learning, whether in the classroom, at the synagogue, in the archaeological field, or just in conversations with friends, I have been privileged and fortunate to get to know the kind, accessible, caring, and compassionate menorah that constitutes the heart of this congregation and this city. I vividly remember my first meeting, as Rabbi Brown talked about, with Professor Gardner and Rabbi Brown about 2 years ago. One thing she didn't mention, though, is that that occurred during Pesach, not a quiet time of year for any rabbi. Nonetheless, the two of them kindly set aside time to meet with someone that they barely knew, and they immediately connected me with the synagogue and many other resources and asked if there was anything they could do to help make my transition to Vancouver and Canada a little bit easier. That August, after a nightmarish 5.5 hours at YVR, complete with getting someone else's passport and study permit, talk to me at the ONEG if you want to know more, and being randomly selected for COVID testing, if you remember those days, the first notification I received on my phone was an email from Greg, welcoming me to Vancouver and asking when I'd like to meet him. That fall, I spent hours on Kitts Beach after Tashlich, meeting not just with Greg and Rabbi Brown, but with numerous temple members who went out of their way to introduce themselves, welcome me to the shul, and ask if there was anything they could do to help. Since those first introductions, I have been blown away by how much this community has done to integrate me and make me feel at home, welcoming me to Shabbat dinners, inviting me to participate in the Temple Shalom choir, the band, Purim spiels, and most recently, Cantor Cohen and Rabbi Cohen even generously inviting me over to their apartment on the first night of Pesach for a Seder, and for putting up with me when I arrived an hour late because I had spent 9 hours on 2 different delayed planes and had lost my bags. The amazing support that I've received here has helped me to cherish the importance of connection and belonging, and has led me towards the deeply communal, tight-knit cohort of ancient history students at the University of Pennsylvania, where I will begin as a doctoral student this fall. Each time I spoke with professors or students from doctoral programs to which I had applied, I looked for the same light that I had found here, the light of acceptance, the light of belonging, the light of compassion, the light of community, the light of kindness. I'm humbled to have the opportunity to sit by this menorah a little longer. I'm not going anywhere yet. I'm here through the end of July. But it's never too early to offer a little bit of hoda'ah, of thanks, just as we did together earlier in the service. Rabbi Brown, Rabbi Dan, Cantor Cohen, thank you for everything you do to foster this warm and caring community, at times traditional, at times radical, finding a place for our ancient traditions in our modern world. I will in particular never forget Rabbi Dan's dvar on the Akedah, or the binding of Isaac. Your willingness to talk about biblical criticism on the Bima and ponder ways that it might help us find meaning in our sacred text was so empowering to me. Shira, Kat, Joyce, Aaron, Alyssa, and Aaron, who couldn't be here tonight, thank you so much for being such a wonderful group of musicians who I always look forward to seeing at rehearsals and services. Your energy and your infectious is in kindness your energy and kindness is infectious. That really changes the meaning. And I couldn't have asked for a better group of people to make music with. And of course, thank you to Cantor Cohen, who has brought us together, selected our music, organized times to rehearse, which I assure you is not as easy as it sounds, and always fostering a warm, creative, and compassionate rehearsal space. Yael, who's I don't think is here, but our next-gen coordinator, your enthusiasm and your excitement always makes my day. And I know that the next-gen cohort thrives because of all the work you do to bring us together for such wonderful and varied events. Kylan, who is still in Michigan, thank you for all your work in making Hillel such a wonderful space for UBC students and for your companionship, whether at the weekly Hillel Hot Lunch, at synagogue, and even in coming to my thesis defense a few months ago and reminding me that my battery was about to run out of charge, so we didn't lose anyone on Zoom. Your ability to unabashedly be yourself in every context is so inspiring to me. A special shout out to those of us who I'll call Oak Street birds, for lack of a better term. Much like snowbirds who travel between New York and Florida each year, we are so fortunate to be able to travel to different synagogues up and down Oak Street. Never once have I felt slighted or judged for moving between different communities or denominations, as sometimes unfortunately happens elsewhere. It is truly amazing how much Jews here across denominations are committed to supporting and sustaining one another, regardless of the differences in how they live out their own Judaism. And lastly, Greg, You have been a truly spectacular advisor. Instead of acting as a gatekeeper, vayehu li, you have used a different verse from the Torah as your model, Lech Lecha, from Sefer Bereshit, when Avraham is told to embark on an unknown journey. Greg, you have truly allowed me to go to myself, helping me to find my voice as a scholar and supporting me not just as a graduate student, but also in your concern for my personal well-being. I'd like to end with a beautiful midrash that I was introduced to by Professor Christine Hayes, a leading scholar of rabbinic literature, which to me encapsulates how this community so beautifully and openly wrestles with Torah, and speaks to what any Jewish community can be when everyone actively works to build it. Here is the text, which comes from the medieval work Tana Debi Eliyahu Zuta. To what can the giving of Torah be compared? To a human king of flesh and blood who had 2 servants, and he loved them both with a great love. And he gave to one a measure of wheat, and he gave to the other a measure of wheat, and he gave them both a bundle of flax. Well, what did the wise servant do? Well, the wise servant took the flax, and he wove a beautiful cloth, and he took the wheat, and he made flour, and he sifted it, and he ground it, and he kneaded it, and he baked it, and he set it upon the table, and he spread the beautiful cloth upon it. But what did the foolish servant do? Well, the foolish servant did nothing at all. And after some time, the king came into the house, and he said to his 2 servants, "My sons, bring me what I gave you." The first brought the bread, made from the flour, upon a table, and the beautiful cloth upon it. But the other brought the wheat, still in a pile, and the bundle of flax still upon it. Alas for his shame. When the Holy One of Blessing gave the Torah to Israel, God gave it only in the form of wheat, for us to make flour from it, only in the form of flax, for us to weave a garment from it. I'm honored to have played a small role in making that bread and cloth of Torah that this temple and city so deeply fosters and nourishes. Shabbat Shalom.
Wow. Thank you so much, Lewis, for sharing your incredible teaching. Of course, now we're going to sing. And I was thinking about before we rehearsed, but you know what the piece is, but that's okay. What texts to use at this moment when we may be saying goodbye, but really we're saying lehitraot. We will see each other again, right? You will always have a home here in Vancouver at Temple Sholom in our community, and we are just so blessed to have you. So this is a setting of our Shehechianu blessing, which is one we use for moments of gratitude, moments of transition, moments of celebration, and this is all of those things. So this also happens to be a setting that it means a lot to me because my class sang it at our ordination a few years ago. It was composed by my teacher, Benji Ellen Schiller.
Not a dry eye in the house. Lewis, there's one other type of light that you didn't mention, and that is the light of the Hanukkah, the Shamash candle. The light that lights the light for others. You're going to take some of your light with you, but your drash today and your ner neshama, the light of your soul, that's going to remain. It is kindling a light in all of us, and it shines brightly, as do you. Thank you. We'll rise, page 586 for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת. Einon,
Middle of page 590.
כי המלכות של חיים ולעולם תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Please be seated. In the midst of this joy and celebration of this Shabbat, there are some, indeed perhaps many, that have come tonight to mourn loved ones, for whom even the celebration of Shabbat is muted by the loss of their dear ones who are not sitting with them. So many services and chagim and holidays and family celebrations where they were by their side and now they are but with them in memory. And so we provide the comfort of our presence and the comfort, hopefully, of our community as we recall them for blessing. As I read the names of those who've died during this past week or these past 30 days, families in the midst of Shiva and Shloshim, if you could rise as I read the name of your loved ones so that we might comfort you in our midst. Susan Everall, Goldie Casson, Adele Kirkle, Jerry Lambert, Ronnie Margulies, Ron Mintz, Abraham Tabashklik, and those for whom the Ortzeit, the anniversary of the death of your loved one, was on this Shabbat, if you too could rise as I read their name. Sadie Abelson, Miriam Bookbinder, Rivka Brundy, Ruth Kadron, Fanny Kam, Florence Cowling, Pearl Crystal, Perry Sheldon Davids, Egon Eisenberg, Marcus Eskenazi, Bessie Gladstone, Naomi Groper Steiner, Asser Harowitz, William Karlinski, Sylvie Katz, Ida Kay, Robert Kemeny, Larissa Kazakov, Adam Langsman, Igor Leventhal, Shirley Levine, David Littner, Alan Mandelman, Efim Matakov, Leonard Mishler, William Muchnick, Shirley Nerman, David Nittickman, Isaac Parker, Russell Lewis Remick, Vera Rosen, Doreen Rind, Gertrude Sandig, Fanny Shanin, Milton Schulman, Gordon Slobin, Eric Starrin, Yana Timko, Robert Vogel, Emil Wenner, Miriam White, James Kerr Wilson, Louis Duncan Zaks. If there are any names I've mispronounced, or if you've come to say Kaddish for any other reason, if you could rise and call them out one by one in the midst of our congregation as well. We look around the congregation, see those that have stood in mourning. We don't want them to stand alone, and so we'll stand now, providing the comfort of our presence as we invite those who would like to join with the mourners in Kaddish Yatom, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'yoma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimaru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'lomei omaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha b'rechu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, daminron be'alma v'yimaru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yalkol Yisrael v'yimaru amen. Osei shalom imromav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al yoshvei tevel, v'yimaru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort the bereaved among us, and we say together, amen. We're almost done, but if you'll indulge us for just another moment, as we join together in Kiddush and Motzi, we also want to celebrate Rabbi Brown on her birthday. I think there's flowers somewhere. Mary Kleiner's amazing. Oh, there we are. You can get it, Mary. Constantine went out and got a cake, the whole thing. What? Cake? So before we do Kiddush, let's do happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rabbi Brown. Happy birthday to you. Skip around the sanctuary? No.
ויחולו השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, וישפוט ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, Borei v'riah gafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron le'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila le'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher le'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol amim ve'shabat kodshecha ve'ava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Chaim. This beautiful challah made by Mary Kleiner, I believe. And Annette together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
We'll close with Oseh Shalom.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל
Shabbat Shalom. If our Sisterhood board could remain back, I believe there is a Shabbistic okay photo that is about to not be taken but taken. And since the service ran so long, you're welcome to come late tomorrow morning. Services start at 10. You can come at 10:30. Nothing special happens until then anyways. Shabbat Shalom.
Do you agree to tell no one?